What's going on, everybody? Peter here from Facts Not Included. Today's episode is going to be all about Christopher Robin. I'm currently in Kansas City, Missouri, with my dad. We're enjoying their wonderful town and the wonderful state of Missouri. So with that being said, wasn't able to get the guys together to go see a movie, so Mr. Antonio Connolly got to see Christopher Robin, which came out about a week ago. He did a little review for you guys, and it's about to start any second now. But I want to do a quick shout out to all the people from Kansas City, Missouri. I want to thank you guys so much for the hospitality you've given me. I'm actually heading to St. Louis in a couple of days, and so I hope the people of St. Louis are as good as the people of Kansas City. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode that Mr. Connolly did for you guys. It's a really good episode. I enjoyed it. Without further ado, here we go.
Hey everybody, it's your boy Antonio from Facts Not Included, the podcast. And today's episode will be one of our movie reviews, and the movie I'll be talking about is Christopher Robin. Personally, I enjoyed the movie. I'm just going to tell you that right now before I get into the nits and grits about it. But I just want to say that when I saw the movie, it was a matinee showing. Not too many people were in there. It's a really feel-good movie. It's not a lot of stakes. Like not comparing to a like Infinity War or something like that. It was just a really, really nice change of pace for me personally. Yeah, it's definitely one of those movies where you would bring a date along and then you see it. It's not like most of the Disney live action movies that are out, mostly about the princesses, even the Jungle Book. It's got that like nice cutesy feel to it. It really brings you to some tears. If you're a huge fan of the Winnie the Pooh series, like I am, I grew up on it since I was a kid. I've seen like basically all the episodes. I'm pretty sure I have VHSs of those episodes somewhere. I've seen like even the most recent like animated movie that they did a few years back. When they, that was, I think, the last movie Disney started doing hand drawings in, so that was really special. Like I even have some of the books that, like, there's like 3 books, I believe, this like the Winnie the Pooh stories, poems and stuff like that, and then something else. The author, I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head, but had published. I even have those, so. Like this, to me, this movie is really, really special to me. So the movie starts off in a really interesting way, where it starts off like the normal way a Winnie the Pooh story started off, like as a kid. Like for me personally, if you saw the show, it started off with like the book rustling in papers, and it was like drawn out stories and sketches, and like has chapters coming in, and it shows Christopher Robin as a child talking to Pooh, Piglet, and they're all having like a little story time, like farewell party for him and whatnot. And basically Christopher Robin is growing up, and he's finally leaving. He's not a kid anymore, and like with life and with like quote unquote imaginary friends, you tend to like go away from that. And I think that's the whole story of the movie. It kind of like, it's about the innocence of a child and the harshness basically of growing up. And I think they really captivated it really well. Like Ian McGregor, his acting is phenomenal in the movie. It was like, it really showcased like a more adult-esque Christopher Robin in a way. Like he portrayed the emotions and the responsibilities of an adult perfectly. Like as a person who recently just graduated college, having friends who are trying to find like careers and whatnot, and having all their focus on those paths, whether it be going to grad school, whether to be going on to a starting position at a company or and whatnot, like, or starting their own business and stuff like that. It really showcased, like, in this movie, when you watch Christopher Robin as an adult, the struggles that he has to deal with, right? So throughout the movie, it kind of like fast forwards a little bit, where he was in boarding school when he was younger and he was growing up to be a teenager, and then it fast forwards And while this is all happening, it's like a montage of different things. Like he meets his wife, he goes off to the war, and it basically is showcased like a novel, right? Where it has drawings and like, chapter posts and text saying Christopher does this and Christopher does that. And it's a very interesting way to progress the story without really delving into too much of the backstory behind the movie, because you really want to capture him and his adult, like I was talking about earlier, and telling you that main concept of or plot point that they want to get across to everybody, right? So fast forward when he was adult, he's come back from the war. He has a wife and a daughter, and basically he's like in one of the top positions of his company. He works as this quality assurance type of briefcase for rich people, essentially. And at the time, I feel like they even showcased it, in the story, like it's only rich people using briefcases, and his boss basically wants him to fire a ton of his workers, right? But he's having a problem with that because when he's a good guy deep down inside, he doesn't want to fire people, right? These are people he's worked with for years, he's grown, has relationships with, and it's also that feeling of an adult when, see, I've never personally been there, but have done this, right? Or been in a position to have give people pink slips. But I've heard stories from friends who've worked in HR, and having to do that really devastates a person. So it kind of showcases that, right? That another aspect of adult life where you have to basically step on another person's dreams in a way, right? It's like a little not a foreshadow or anything like that, but like a little metaphor. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah, it's like a metaphor of that they showcased, right? So he's struggling with that, and he's struggling with a young daughter who's in the same position, right? He's forcing her to go to school, not have any fun, study hard, and get into like one of these top schools that he got into, right? And he, as an adult, he like left behind all of the things that made him a kid, right? He left all his memories and his drawings of Winnie the Pooh and Piglet and all the gang from the 100-Acre Wood. And you kind of like feel for his kid, because his daughter Madeline just wants her dad to be a dad, instead of like her dad being like a boss and a teacher figure in her life, right? Obviously she loves the fact that her dad is making her do all these things, but and having a decent job to do all this stuff, because he's not in the house all the time. It's more like, when she does see him, she wants him to read her stories or play with her or just have time and just talk to her as a kid. But he doesn't see that way. Like as you watch the movie, he doesn't see that, and he like basically just takes the approach of like a teacher and not like a more of an educator, in a way more like, okay, you gotta study, the stereotypical like Asian father type of thing. I'd hate to use that analogy here, but it's like the memes, right? Like, oh, you all you have to do is study, you can't do this, you can't do that, right? And that's what that was being portrayed in the movie, in a sense where there's the scene that really stood out to me was she's on her bed, right? It's late. Christopher Robin came back from work, and Madeline asks her dad, can you read me a bedtime story? And he goes, sure. And he starts reading some like old history book when she wanted him to read Treasure Island. She goes, never mind, Dad, I'm tired. And she pretends to go to sleep, but when he walks out the room, he kind of like, oh, okay. Walks out the room, and then he waits, she turns off the light. 5 minutes later, he's staring at like the bottom of the doorway, and her lights go back on, and she's like reading that story, right? So it kind of hits home a little bit. And then, you fast forward to when he has to work all the time, and his bosses basically screw him over, as most adults with jobs know that feeling of being screwed over with a boss who when you wanted vacation time or you wanted something You want some off time and spend time with people that are important to you, or just want a break and you never get it. Um, he's struggling with some things, and he basically has this annoying neighbor in a sense and bothering him and stuff. So he's just trying to dodge this annoying neighbor of his, and while this is all is happening, right? He's like not caring about the 100 acre wood. He's not, being a kid again. He's not like remembering his friends and stuff. It flashes back to Winnie the Pooh waking up, right? And he does his like his nap, like his you know, traditional waking up with the towelly and his pajamas and doing his stretching. But then you see the 100 acre wood. It's not normally looks that way. It's all like foggy and desolate, and it looks like monsters are around and stuff. And Pooh's trying to find his friends, but he can't find them. And I forgot to mention, throughout the whole flashbacks of Christopher Robin growing up, Christopher as a kid told Pooh he would never forget him. Right? They have that iconic scene on that little like branch looking on the horizon, and he said, Pooh, I'm never gonna forget you. You're always gonna be my friend, And then he sets off, and then so Pooh every time, every year or so. I'm assuming time is relative to the 100 acre wood because it's kind of like a magical place. Pooh would stand in front of that door waiting for him to come back. Never comes back. So now, Pooh, goes and tries to find his friends. He can't find them. They're all missing. They're kind of like it gives you the notion that, oh, since Christopher doesn't remember them, they're gone, right? Like that's the note. That's like the idea I got in my head, and I in the beginning that's what you would think it is, and I feel like that they should have continued that process because later on, they show everybody else except for Pooh. It's kind of a weird thing, and that was one of my problems with the movie. But yeah, so Pooh goes out and he finds Christopher, and he's like, oh shit, you're real. And he wasn't expecting it because he just all thought, oh, this isn't my imaginary friends. These are not real. This is obviously like, stuff I made up as a kid. And so then he sees a real life Pooh, and he's like, oh, damn, right? And Pooh's Pooh. He's a bear with little brain, and it's really cute. Like Pooh doing his things and like messing around the house, and Christopher Robin trying to be an adult. Like he has responsibilities, right? He has his job, he has all this other stuff, so he's kind of like basically trying to get Pooh back to where he is, all the while trying to get to his job done, right? Like that's the whole, like that's that whole like point that he's trying to do. He's like, okay, you got to go home, I can't take care of you, I got shit to do, you got to go play with your friends, right? You got to go back at everybody else. And so, basically he has to take take Pooh, and there's like, cute stuff that happens around. One of the jokes in the movie was, this is my bear. He gets into, an argument with some little kid, and then basically like takes Pooh back. It's like, you can't steal a grown man's bear and whatnot. And, because the fact that Pooh is like a realistic looking teddy bear and he can talk, that type of comedy also comes through. And it's kind of like hit or miss, a little bit, to be honest. It wasn't like really, really, really strong in a way, with that comedy, but it's cute, right? Like you're not in the movie to like laugh your ass off. It's more like haha, aw, that type of feeling. So then, Christopher, and Pooh managed to get their way back to Christopher's old childhood, like home, where his wife and kid are staying for like the weekend. And Christopher Robin has like this weird rough patch with his wife because he's tense. He's like doesn't see her that often anymore. She doesn't like have fun with him. Like they're like on a rocky thing, but she's still with him, because she still loves him. And he basically goes with Pooh and sneaks through the whole thing. And Pooh's like, oh, who are these people? And he tells them who they are, and they go into the 100 acre wood. Now, like I was saying earlier, the 100 acre wood is like really, really like desolate, and it makes you feel really scared, right? And it gives you like real goosebumps, and the fact that Christopher Robin's not like letting Pooh do his thing like they used to, right? And he kind of like gets mad at him, and like he kind of yells at Pooh, and it's kind of sad, to be honest. It was like it almost brought a tear to my eye because of the fact that I grew up with Winnie the Pooh, right? So if you grew up with that, you know how the bond between Pooh and Christopher Robin is, and like they're the iconic duo of the franchise, like they're the two best friends. So more so than Piglet and Pooh, if you can like imagine that. But yeah, it was just, it's very very sad to see that the man, the boy who used to drop sticks in the river with Pooh and used to stay on this branch and look at the horizon, was like freaking out at him, right? And getting mad at him, forgetting who he like truly was as a person. And so as that's going on, Pooh just wants to find his friends and whatnot. And it gets to the part of the movie where I started to question, like, there's like basically two parts of the movie. There's and so this scene is where Pooh just disappears, right? He just disappears out of nowhere, and Christopher Robin goes to find him, and the whole scary thing of Winnie the Pooh is like the woozles and the Hufflepuffs, not the Hufflepuffs, Humplepuffs, I believe the name is. They're basically like elephants. And I feel like they retconned one of the movies where the elephant character was introduced to the show. So I feel like they took that out. If you watch those, you'll know what I'm talking about. But yeah. And so he drops into the iconic hole, the dirt, like the hole that the Heffalump trap that they made like years ago, right? And he hits his head, water's filling up, and he has this like daydream sequence where Pooh's trying to save him, but like the Heffalump is basically trying to take him away. And so like at that point, me watching that, I was like, oh, okay, so he finally gave up, right? Like he finally, like, because the iconic words, like, I guess iconic words, but the important words that were said in that scene was Pooh's like, I guess you gotta let me go now, right? So back to my earlier plot point of he's forgetting everybody. This is a problem. Everyone's gonna vanish, like kind of like Thanos' snap, right? So he finally let go of Pooh, and now he became the thing that, as a kid, he helped his friends, conquer their fears of that, right? And then he wakes up, and the 100-acre wood is not all gloomy. It's not all desolate. It's like sunny. And then all of a sudden, he starts walking, looking for Pooh, and he finds Eeyore, right? So that whole thing, like, I understand. Maybe Pooh saved him in that dream sequence. Maybe I have to watch the movie again to really fully understand it. But like, first time viewing that, it kind of made it seem like that scene just made it seem that he finally let go of everybody, and he's given up on his whole like identity as a child, right? Like, and that was one of the big things for me. Other than then he goes, Eeyore with his comedy of like depression and whatnot, just little like depression jokes, and no one cares about him type of stuff. Kind of like, it was funny, and he's bringing them everybody around, and he finds everyone, and he tells them, "Oh, I'm not a monster or whatever," and he goes to find Pooh eventually, spending the whole day there and forgetting that he has to work. And so that's like really the first part, and then the second part of the movie is essentially him going back to his job and trying to basically fix the whole relationship between him and his daughter and his wife. And he basically essentially does that because Tigger messes up a little bit with like his papers. There's important papers for his job, but he replaces them with like like important valuables of the 100-acre wood to remember them by, right? So he just goes and does that, and his kid comes and whatnot. It's just like a very very cute situation where like his daughter runs away, and tries to help him and tries to gain the approval of her father throughout that whole thing. And you know, people not believing in Pooh Bear and all of them, and you know, basically him telling his boss to, you know, piss off. I have a way to solve your, you know, the problems of the company. All you gotta do is basically allow everyone to have luggage from this company and whatnot, and you know, looking things at it from a different angle, and you know, using using Pooh to help him out and stuff. You know, Pooh's wise words of "I do nothing, nothing leads to something" and whatnot, and it's just really really cute, honestly. Also, another thing about like the movie at the end, it was kind of like it was slowly trying to imply the fact that he was going to get fired from his job, or he was going to quit. And a friend of mine told me, he's like, yo, I hate those types of stories. And looking back at it, it kind of like, yeah, it just doesn't make sense for the guy to just quit or get fired for something, right? It just didn't bode well. But his boss, like the CEO of the company, kind of like said, well, I like your idea. This idea is really really, it could bring another perspective and another way to change the way companies are made and whatnot. So it gave a new perspective, and the way I feel like the way they handled that situation was different than most other movies in the same kind of category. So hats off to you, Disney, for that. And yeah, like I said, there was no real like huge stakes for the movie, right? Like you never once felt like something really really bad was going to happen to him. At most, you thought he was going to get rid of like the Pooh and the whole 100 Acre Woods gang. They were just going to pop up and poof away, like I said. It was just really really a nice feel good movie. I think it's personally, if you truly truly like Winnie the Pooh, like I said, just definitely watch the movie just to watch the movie, because again, it's not a bad movie at all. It really, like, how do I say this without sounding redundant? It really, like, it's something nice to sit down, watch with either, like I said, like bring a date or just a group of friends or some. You could see it solo if you want, or watch it with like your kid, because obviously you don't have a children or kids with you. I feel like that's what it was marketed towards, to be honest. But the it's really cute and it's really nice. Again, with like having something like Mission Impossible coming out, and then you have like Meg coming out, soon, and like a lot of action sequences. If you're a person who needs like a small little break from that, I definitely recommend watching it. Going to talk about like the CGI of the movie, because I feel like a lot of people had worries about it when the first trailer first came out and whatnot. So I personally think the CGI with Pooh and Tigger and Piglet and the whole 100 Acre Woods gang was pretty well done. Owl actually looked like a legitimate owl, while everyone else kind of looked like stuffed animals, which was kind of off a little bit, but it was fine. It was dope to have Jim Cummings come back as to reprise his role as Pooh and Tigger, and whatnot. So that was awesome. So I'm just gonna go straight into like my rating out of it. So this rating is gonna be out of 10, like we usually do, and I'm a pretty relaxed rater, to be honest. I feel like I said earlier, the CGI was not bad. Scenes were okay. There's only one big major flaw of it. It's kind of like I said earlier, the dream sequence and whatnot. So I'm just gonna give it a solid 8 out of 10. Not amazing, nothing to brag about really. It's definitely not a movie that's gonna steal the box office. I don't think Disney was even thinking that it was gonna do that. But it's definitely a movie that you should pick up when for DVD or Blu-ray, or watch it on Netflix. Rest in peace, Blockbuster, because I would say rent it somewhere, and you could just watch with your kids or a girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever floats your boat. and just relax and eat popcorn and just enjoy the cuteness of Winnie the Pooh. All right. Thanks for watching, or wait, not watching, but listening to me ramble about it. And on to the next episode. Peace.